what's going on guys? Mark back in the workshop on Mark's Aquatics. We're going to be breeding Congo Tetras today. I can hear you all going, yay, at last we're going to be breeding Congo Tetras. Well, I thought I'd do it and be going away soon on a trip. So what I'm going to do is, I've set the tank up and I'm just going to run through with you guys what I've done and how I've set the tank up, water parameters, all that kind of stuff. Now I'm going to have somebody who's going to be helping me when I do go away. They're going to come in and be feeding the fish. So I'm going to try and get these guys to spawn before I go, and then they can be feeding the fry while I'm away. I'll be going away in the next sort of couple of maybe three to 4 weeks time. But I want to try and get it all rigged up now, and hopefully we'll get it done. And because I've got to do a lot with the bench tank, I've got to move a lot of the fry around. If you notice some of the tanks here are empty now, it's because a lot of the fish are in the bench tank behind me here. I'll show you those in a minute. We've got a nice little couple of clouds of zebra danios in there, and I've moved them all from in here. We've still got the king tiger plecos in there. We've still got the baby white cloud mountain minnows in here. That one's empty now. The Congo Tetras are in that tank there now. We'll go over that in a minute. And I've put the baby pygmy cories in another little tank right at the end there. So I'll show you those in a minute as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to swing off of my ugly mug and I'm going to show you now these Congo Tetras, okay? We go. We have a beautiful pair of Congo Tetras there. Male's about just over 2.5 inches long, I would say. 3 inches, I'd say, with his fins. Female's a good couple of inches. Oh, a nice little mosquito larvae there. Look at that. She nailed that one straight away. Right. Parameters. Now, what I've done is, I've just cleaned out the pygmy cories were in this tank. They're next door. I'll show you them somewhere through the video. But I've moved them out of this tank now because Congo Tetras need a bigger tank to spawn in, okay? This is a 20-gallon tank, okay? Right, for all you guys who need to know the ins and outs, the tank is 18 inches long, okay? And I'll just do the depth. By a foot deep, and the water level is a foot deep as well. Now it's a 15-inch tank, but I've got it down to, because I've got a rear filtration system in this one, so I'm going to keep it at around a foot of water in there. Okay, now that's enough for these guys. 20 gallons, probably less than that now, obviously because it's not full. Now then, what we've got in here, the tank was empty first. They were in my main bench tank behind me. And now what I've done is, I was going to give that a water change. So what I've done is, I have siphoned the water from my bench tank straight across and filled this tank to there. Sorry, to about there, okay? Just by that little subscribe sign there, I'd say, just on the bottom of there, look. No hints, but if you fancy subscribing, crack that button and that notification bell for up and coming videos. And I would appreciate that, and share it about as much as you can, and we'll get a few more of you guys on board and get to 10,000 subs. Right, so what I've done is, like I just said, I've siphoned the water straight from the bench tank straight into this tank, filled it up to around the bottom of the subscribe sign there, and I have filled it with some RO water to the top. Okay, which, let me take you up a little bit there. See, there's the top of the tank there. So I've taken it up from about there to there with RO water. Now that water that you see in there was straight out of the bench tank at 7.2 pH. Okay, 7.2 pH. So write that down, or just rewind and watch it again. Now what I've done is I've put some RO water in there and raised it up. Now that has diluted that pH down now. Now that pH in there now is around, I would say, 6.7, 6.8. But we want to get it lower than that. We want to get it down to around 6 to 6.5, okay, for these guys to have a good spawn. What you're looking at there is a ball of peat. Now, I made another video earlier on, and I'll splice that bit in on how I made that, okay? And show you what to do with that in a minute. Right guys, I've got the peat. Now this is peat that I make up in my garden every year, so it's just leaf mould, which is all broken down, old plant life, just rubbish from the garden, and every year I just bank it up and put it in there, and then you dig in amongst it and you get all this kind of stuff, which is all good. Now I haven't soaked this yet, but one thing I will say, right, when you go through it, sift through it with your fingers first, break up all the little lumps and make sure there's no worms, little bits of stuff like that, okay, in it first. Any biggish roots or different bits of plant matter and things that you can find in amongst it, take that all out. Anything that's living, remove it, otherwise it's going to die and it's going to pollute your water up, okay, especially little worms and things. You can pre-soak this first. I've been through this and there's nothing left in it at all, but you can fill that up with water in here first, leave it for a couple of days, wash it through, you'll see any dead worms then float to the surface. You can rinse it out again with some fresh rainwater or just dechlorinated water to make sure it's all clean. And then all we do is we get an old pair of tights, we just chop the foot off about that far up the foot. Okay, you can have a stone in here as well. What I tend to do is just bunch it all up into a big heap and squeeze a big lump like that first, pull that over the top, and then you've got it in the bag. Okay, then you can really compress that up, put a little stone in amongst it as well. Now that's going to help it sink, and you're not going to get all that rubbish then pardon me, you're not going to get all that rubbish then in amongst the water, and the tannins can come through the mesh. And I'll put a little bit more in there. You don't have to do it that way. You can just squeeze some in your hands and put it in the top like you're stuffing a chicken, and then just shake that and bounce that off your hand as you're squeezing down, and then you get up that nice little ball there like that, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little stone in there as well, because I want it to sink down out the way. And believe it or not, I've had it before and I've put moss on the top of those, and it sticks to it, grows onto it, and they use that as a spawning media as well. So I'm just going to find a nice little stone to go in there and I'll get back to you. Right, got a couple of nice little stones there which I've had outside. We're going to trim this back, so just work your way down into there and then stick them in amongst the peat. You can ball it over the top again and create that ball. You can squeeze that as much as you can, tighten it up. I'll just move that out of the way now. Now those are inside there, and then just hold down, just do one twist around your fingers like that, ping it off the end. Oh my goodness, that is tight. Pull that through. And then pull that down just like that, and then snip that off right near the end, and there you've got it. You've got a nice little round ball of peat now inside there, weighted. You can shape it up if you're fussy like me, and then you've got a nice little ball. And then, right, now you've seen how the peat ball's made. It's added to the tank. Now that peat now is going to slowly absorb that water, those tannins, and those all the goodness from that peat and everything else. Now is going to slowly drop that pH, okay, over time. It's not going to be a quick drop, it's going to be slow over time, but we can keep adding RO water or rainwater. Don't forget, you can add rainwater if you can get it from a nice clean source. You can add rainwater as well, because that's very low in minerals, and that will really lower that pH. And that's the thing that gets these guys to spawn, and that's what gets a lot of species to spawn, like you've seen in my neon videos, breeding videos, the Danios videos. Not so much for the Danios, but with the catfish as well. It's that lowering of the pH which sparks off that spawning activity. Okay, that's what mimics that rain coming in, that drop in water, that rise in water. A lot of you guys asked me about that with different catfish. Do they all spawn the same way? There's another mosquito larvae there, going to get nailed in a minute. And the answer is they're very similar in pH. There's obviously different areas are slightly different in pH because of where they are. But the majority of catfish are going to spawn, the corries especially, when you drop that pH down and you add that rainwater and you sprinkle that in, and that will create and mimic that rain, and that was what gets them off, that heavy feeding rain, and that's what gets these guys spawning. And that goes for a lot of species, it really does. And like I've said before, breeding fish, getting them to lay the eggs is not the hard bit, it's the raising of the fry which is the hard bit, and to get them successfully through. Okay, so that's where we are at the moment. We've got some rickia floating on the top there with some of the dwarf sage, dwarf swords, some people call it. We got some Java fern at the back attached to a bit of coconut hide at the back, bit of subwasatang, and the main spawning media is the mops on the right hand side of the tank. Now I've made 3 mops up there. You've seen me make the mops on I think it was the killifish video. I made the mops then that. So if you're unfamiliar with that, watch the killifish video, how to breed killifish, and you'll watch me how to make. I made those mops, okay, on there. But why I haven't put the peat in with this one, it's because when these guys go to town and they start to spawn, they like to dive in amongst the media, and they really do agitate and mess around in that water, and they will really send that peat flying up into the water column, and it goes absolutely everywhere. You get clouds and clouds of it everywhere, where neons will just literally go above the spawning mops or the Java moss, whatever you use, release that sperm and those eggs into the water column, and they'll float down in amongst it and sit there until they hatch. These guys do the same, but they like diving in amongst and stirring everything up. So at least if they go mad in amongst that spawning mop, all it's going to do is move it around. They can deposit the eggs in amongst it, it's going to fall in amongst it, they're not going to find them, and they're not going to predate on them. Okay, so that's why we've got the old pair of pantyhose there, or here in the US, or in the UK, pair of old tights there, or new ones. Makes no difference. Give them a wash through if you're using them first under a bit of tap water. Make sure they're all clean before you put the peat inside and the stone like I showed you before, and weight that down. Now so those tannins are going to slowly drop that pH now. Now these guys might spawn first thing in the morning. It's late in the afternoon now while I'm doing this video, and hopefully first thing in the morning I'm going to cover the tank over tonight, so I'm in complete control. I'm going to come down, I'm going to turn the lights on, take the cover off, I'm going to cover the tank over, okay, so it really does keep a lot of the light out, keeps it nice and dark, and then I'll take that off, and then we can see if they spawn first thing in the morning. Now they're nicely conditioned. I've been feeding them in the bench tank now for, well, I'd say a good couple of weeks, and if they're in your normal tank, if you've got them in your normal community tank, you're going to be feeding them well anyway. But feed them well up with the bloodworms, frozen tube effects, frozen mysis, any live food or any frozen food. Live food I always find kicks them off the best, and that's why you see me putting mosquito larvae in there, trying to replicate that nature as much as I can. Lots of live food going in, lowering that pH, and then that's what gets them and drives them to spawn and to get that new generation. You can see he's being a little bit territorial there. She's got a nice little chunky belly on her. So hopefully in the morning we'll get a bit of spawning action. I wanted to do this before I went away because I've just had to move. I don't know if I have said it and I'm repeating myself, but I've just moved about 200 plus, I would say, zebradanios into the bench tank, and all of the Endler, those new Endler fry that we've had, those Endler guppy crosses, into the bench tank. So I had to take these guys out because they're quite big tetras, and believe it or not, they will predate on these young fish, and they'll eat them. And I've had to take the diamond tetras out as well and put them in other tanks. I've put the biggest of the oh, it's coming to me, getting old. of the Congo Tetras in the bottom tank with my crayfish. She's going to be fine down there. Lots of cover for them down there, and she's nicely fed, so she's not going to go hunting anybody down there. So it's got all the big fish out, and it's just left all the babies and some of the smaller neons and different fish in there. And so I can set up a nice little automatic feeder on there now, and then that's going to be all rigged up now for when we go away, where we're going to be bringing you some different videos and different things. Hopefully you'll enjoy it before we come back and we start breeding. But I thought if we can get these to breed before I go, it's going to be sort of 4 or 5 days gestation period, the eggs, before they hatch, and then I can take them out, put them in a separate tank, and then before I have time now, another few days, and my friend can come along and add the worms, these little micro worms, the water worms, to that, and feed those babies, and the infusoria as well. I've got a new culture of infusoria cultured as well. Don't forget, you've got to have the infusoria culture ready before you do this, or breed any fish, especially the very tiny egg scatterers, because you're not going to feed them anything smaller. That's the smallest food you're going to get is infusoria. And you can look at the neon videos. I think I've done a culture on there. Put it into just boil up a bit of broccoli. That's what I use. I find that's brilliant. Put that in a jar, put your broccoli in the jar, put it in a sunny window, and leave it for about a week. It'll stink to high heaven. Then you'll see lots of little white, it'll go bacterial first, bacterial bloom, and then you'll see all these little white dots appearing in there. Now that's what you syringe out and pump into the tank when you get the fry. If you're unsure of that, guys, watch my How to Breed Neon Tetras videos, and I go through all that in there, okay, so you can go back. Feeding these little fish is all the same. We've got to go through the same stage. Some of the other fry, like the guppy fry, are a lot bigger. They'll take brine shrimp from day one. Freshly hatched brine shrimp or water worms, they've got bigger mouths, and because they're live bearers, they come out a lot more advanced, so they can tackle bigger foods. You can always see when these fish are in condition. If you look at those scales, they really are metallic, all the colours of the rainbow running through them, and when they're in that breeding condition, that's when you're going to see them at their best, and that's when you want to put them in to their tank. And don't forget, you're going to need a mature pair if you're going to do this. There's no point going straight to your shop and buying a couple straight out of their display, out of their for sale tanks, because they're going to be young ones and they're not going to be old enough to breed. Okay, so you're going to need them at least 2 to 3 inches long. Go in there. Sometimes you're going to be lucky and you'll find people that have bought them back because they've outgrown a tank, or they found they've got quite predatory as they've got bigger and they've been picking off the smaller, and they'll take them and you'll bring them back. So you might get lucky there, so keep your eyes open in your shops to find bigger Congo Tetras. There's albino Congo Tetras as well. There's different types, but these are the common normal Congo Tetras that we're breeding here, and we got a nice pair, so hopefully they're going to get some action. Yeah, I thought I'd just say, for people that didn't know, if you want to sex them, extremely easy. The male is the one with the big flowing fins in the back, and the female is the one with short fins in the front. Completely different, very easy to sex, and you can normally sex them at quite a young age as well. The males tend to get that longer trailing fin a little bit later on. He's really pushing her around there. Seems to be a bit more of more aggression than spawning. Now when they do start to spawn, they'll chase each other around the tank like crazy before they go into that spawning mop and start to spawn. So at the moment they just seem to be wanting their little piece of the tank. Obviously territories haven't been set up yet, so he's going to get that sorted out first before anything happens. Right, what I've got here is a load of freshly hatched Artemia, and I'm going to just drip some of those into the surface of the water. Okay, so you might see them dropping down in a minute, and those little drops in the water will activate those little guys as well, so they'll see those little droplets. They'll soon start seeing the Artemia in the water. And they should start nailing those. Obviously they're a little bit stressed still because they've just gone in. but it won't be long before they start nibbling away on those. Here I go, there she goes. She's starting to take them out of the water column now. Now this is one of the things that I do with the bigger tetras as well. As you can see now, she's gliding around, picking up those little tiny freshly hatched brine shrimp. And that is going to be really good protein build-up to produce more eggs, you see. And it also simulates that more food, that more abundance of food in the water column, which also can make them spawn as well, because when they see a lot of food in the water, sometimes that can trigger their little minds to think, right, now there's a lot of baby food in the water, now's the time for us to get the next generation in the water because of all this food and this like planktonic sized food which is going on in the water. The male's starting to nibble away at them now as well. But these are all little handy hints and tricks which I've used over the years of breeding fish to get them going. And sometimes, I mean, I'm not saying that these are going to breed. I've seen them in the tank, in the bench tank. They've been working well, they've been displaying well, and hopefully they're going to spawn, but it's not to say that they will. It could be, you know, like I said, he may be infertile, you don't know. So at the moment everything's going well, everything's going as to plan, as I've done it before. So really we're just going to have to see now, wait and see how it's going to pan out first thing in the morning, and when we put those lights on, and we go from there. But I'll stick a load more brine shrimp in a minute. I'm really going to flood the tank with them. I've got some more here which I've washed through. Now if you haven't got one of these guys, suggest you get one. It's a little sieve. You can buy them on eBay. They're only about £4. Very, very small micron mesh. You put that over your top and you run your Artemia, suck them out with that briny water with a turkey baster out of you, wherever you've racked or wherever you've made them and hatched them. Squirt them through that and just run them under the tap, get all that salt off, and then just dip that into the water. You're going to get a few egg cases in there as well, but that's not to worry. And yeah, highly recommend you get one of those. Very important. So I'm going to flood the tank with these little guys now for the rest of today. And they can be busy, because when you put food in like this as well, it also takes their mind off of going in the tank, you know, being in a new environment, and it just really does gear them up and takes their mind off of being in a new system and a new set of rules, as it were. And there you go, she's forgotten she's in a tank now. It won't be long before he joins in. He's just being a little bit more territorial at the moment, see, over that spawning mop. Right, okay guys, we've got everything set up now already, and hopefully now when we come back for part 2, I'll show you some spawning, some egg releasing and all that great stuff that we do and we capture here in the workshop, and then we can go on from there. But now you've got an idea now how I set the tanks up for them, with the spawning mops, that peat ball with the stones in it. We've got a cycle filter in there. That now that water has been softened up now to around, I think it's about 6.2 at the moment, which is great. Anything between 6 and 6.5. 6.5 is a maximum for breeding these guys, and you're going to be on the way to some success. So hopefully we'll have some spawning action tomorrow morning. I'll probably come back with the second follow-up part of this video Wednesday, and we can get everything, hopefully everything will go smoothly and we'll get some spawn. Anyway guys, as always, you're all stars. Thanks for tuning in for part 1. So if you want to follow along with this, you can. As always, you're all stars. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you on Wednesday for part 2 of how to breed Congo Tetras. Take care, bye for now.
Just me and my guitar.